The movie opens with Gwen's little mind traveling in New York, while playing the drums to no song, to the surprise of her band members. In addition to her multiversal travels and meeting Miles Morales, Gwen recalls when she was best friends with Peter Parker. He was even close to Gwen's family, including her father, Captain George Stacy. Unfortunately, Peter took a serum that turned him into the Lizard, making Gwen fight and kill him at a school dance. George believed Spider-Gwen murdered Peter and issued a manhunt to catch her. However, Gwen still misses Miles and has never felt more alone. A bonding moment between Gwen and her father is interrupted by police chatter on a crime scene. Gwen follows her dad to where the vulture is attacking. She realizes that this glitching vulture comes from a Renaissance-era universe. She becomes overpowered in her attempt to overcome the villain. A portal opens and Miguel O'Hara, from another dimension, jumps out. The villain has a hammerlock, becoming too difficult to subdue. Miguel opts to ask his virtual assistant Lila to call for backup. Immediately, Jessica Drew, a pregnant superhero, enters. Together, the three join forces to bring Vulture down, saving a failed helicopter and its pilots. Meanwhile, Jess is impressed with Gwen's skills and suggests to Miguel that she join their team. But Miguel vehemently disagrees. Just as Gwen struggles to leave, Captain George enters and tries to arrest Gwen, forcing her to reveal her identity to him. She tries to explain herself, but George is bent on arresting her. Miguel comes to her rescue and traps George. At Jessica's request, he welcomes Gwen to the club and hands her a wrist device that allows her to travel between universes. Gwen takes a last glance at her father before joining Jessica and Miguel. In Miles' universe, Earth 1610, he struggles to balance his school life and his life as Brooklyn's Spider-Man. While his parents Jefferson and Rio are in a meeting with his guidance counselor, Miles locates an obstinate villain, known as the Spot, in a convenience store, trying to rob the ATM with the portals that his body generates. Miles multitasks as he texts his father and chases after tricky Spot. Finally, Miles tangles him up through his portals so he can meet his parents. During the meeting, his parents get upset about learning about Miles' absence in 6 Spanish classes, resulting in him getting a B grade. An argument breaks out about Miles' choice of university, which is far from Brooklyn. Miles notices that Spot has escaped from the rooftop, forcing him to end the meeting abruptly and run. Jefferson also leaves Rio after receiving a call to catch the criminal creating a ruckus. Spot leads Miles to Alchemax, where he claims to be the origin of his nemesis. Jefferson follows Spot's portal and gets to watch Miles subdue Spot. However, Spot reveals to Miles that he used to be Dr. Jonathan Owen, a scientist at the Alchemax facility, where he and Peter Parker were. He mentions that Miles threw a bagel at him, and after the destruction of the collider, his body turned white, and his skin began producing portals. He attempts to attack Miles, but instead, he sends himself a kick and lands in his last portal. Subsequently, Miles, still acting as Spider-Man, talks with Jefferson, convincing him to allow his son to spread his wings. Meanwhile, Spot finds himself in a void between numerous worlds, surrounded by portals. He makes attempts to enter them, but he ends up in different universes. This includes a Lego universe, and one where he meets Mrs. Chen, who sends him back. Spot returns to his universe and decides to absorb more energy from colliders in Alchemax facilities across different dimensions to carry out his revenge. The Morales hold a party for Jefferson's upcoming promotion to captain of the police force, but Miles is late because he is supposed to pick up a cake. While heading home, he proceeds to stop the crime, which makes him late. He even misses Jefferson's toast. When he finally does arrive home, Jefferson and Rio scold Miles, leading to a loud argument. Miles is tempted to reveal his true identity to his parents, but it isn't the best time. He becomes grounded, making him head back to his room, where Gwen appears in a portal to visit him. He is elated to see her. She gets to know this by the number of times he has drawn her in his sketchbook. Gwen asks Miles to go out with her. Despite his grounded state, he joins Gwen in swinging around the city. She tells him about Miguel, Jess, and other spider people. They stop at the top of the Williamsburg Bank building to hang upside down, a cool spot to think. Gwen points out Miles' feelings for her, but she places a reminder that in every other universe where a Gwen Stacy falls in love with Spider-Man, things don't end well. They return to the party at the Morales, where Jefferson and Rio meet their son's new suspicious friend. However, Gwen has to leave due to notifications from her watch. This leads to a heart-to-heart discussion between Miles and his mother. She encourages him to go after Gwen and not get lost either. Miles becomes invisible and follows Gwen to a crime scene where Spot has penetrated. With the use of a device, Gwen replays the events, which displays how Spot put himself inside a collider to give him more portals. A call from Jess reveals that Gwen had been assigned the task of finding the multiversal anomaly. Nevertheless, invisible Miles overhears Jess telling Gwen to forget about him. Thanks to Lila, they track Spot's newest location down to the city of Mumbattan, Earth 50,101. Gwen enters the portal, and after hesitating briefly, Miles follows her. Miles enters Mumbattan and appears just as Gwen is chasing after Spot. Since Miles does not possess the universe-jumping device, he glitches, making him unable to provide any help. The duo is joined by Paver Prabhakar, Spiderman India, who brings his skills to the fight. He does the normal intro by revealing he is a high school student who is dating a classy teenager, Gayatri, the daughter of Inspector Singh. Who doesn't like him? They chase Spot to the Mumbattan Alchemax, where he starts to fuse with that building's collider. Miles attempts to use his powers to absorb the force field hindering them, only for Hobie Brown, a gangster Spider-Man and a rule-breaking rocker, to barge in to break the force field. Despite their combined strengths, they fail to stop Spot from fusing with the collider. The fusion opens more portals for the villain, and the lab starts to crash. Miles sees a vision of his father going to rescue a child, with Spot's prompt voice saying that the vision is their future. The three spider people drag a dizzy Miles and run outside to save citizens from the collapsing lab. They manage to evacuate everyone from the bridge and proceed to stop the debris from causing a disaster. Pather pulls his strength to web a bus that Gayatri is on. Meanwhile, Inspector Singh is attempting to save a little girl on a bridge. Miles goes after Singh, despite Gwen's warning to stay away. He manages to prevent Singh's death, while Paviter saves Gayatri. The citizens hail the spider people before a portal opens up in the city. Just in time, Jess arrives with her team to fix things, in a bid to absorb parts of this universe. She informs Miles that he is wanted at their headquarters. Miles arrives at the headquarters, in the company of the others. The Spider Society consists of hundreds of Spideys from hundreds of universes. Jess hands a wristband to Miles, to avoid him from glitching for a day. Miles is amazed to see the villains captured across the multiverse, including a version of Prowler. Miles reunites with Peter B., who introduces him and Gwen to Mayday, his dog. Finally, Miles meets Miguel, who rules the Spider Society. But he expresses his anger on breaking a canon event, all because of Miles. In each universe, with a spider person, a police captain is meant to die in the line of duty. Miles saving Inspector Singh was simply tampering with a canon event. Miguel explains that stopping canon events from happening can lead to serious consequences. He tells his story of how he jumped into a universe where one of his variants died, so he assumed that Miguel's life and his family were. His action led to an anomaly where many people were erased from this universe, including his daughter. Miles realizes that Jefferson will die in 2 days when he is sworn in. He becomes emotional and puts up an argument, but the other spider people already had an idea that it was bound to happen. The other spider people confronts him before Miguel traps him. Miles uses his powers to escape the trap, initiating Miguel's orders to every spider person to go after him. Determined to save his father, Miles fights his way through the facility, warding off every spider person that attacks him. They make it to a train where Miguel chases after Miles. This leads to a fight where he tells the teenager that the spider that bit him wasn't even from his universe, and he wasn't designed to be Spider-Man from the start. He was on to blame Miles for the death of Peter in the spider's universe without a Spider-Man. Gwen and Peter B know about this, and this breaks Miles the more. No wonder they never visited him. Moreover, Miles divulges his plan of releasing the spider people away from the tower. Using his electric powers, he throws Miguel unbalanced and jumps off the train. The teenager finds his way to the headquarters, where Margot's avatar is still there. He activates a machine that will send him back to his universe. Miguel and the other spider people return, but Margot intentionally allows Miles to go home. Miguel takes his anger out on Gwen for helping Miles. Not even Jess could back her up. He collects her device and sends her back to her dimension. Miguel picks Jess and Ben to go with him to get Miles. However, Gwen finds herself in her old apartment, where George now stays alone. She picks up a picture of herself with Miles, but George notices her presence before she leaves. She lays out her anger towards her father for accusing her of being a murderer, but George announces that he had quit the force. Father and daughter reconcile, and George gives her a device Hobie left behind for her. She hugs her dad before jumping into Miles' universe. Miles rushes home and finds Rio. He decides to reveal himself as Spider-Man, only for Rio to get lost in his explanation. On the other side, Gwen goes to Miles' room and discovers that he is not there. Meanwhile, Miles realizes that the machine sent him to Earth 42, the universe where the spider that bit him came from. He meets his uncle, Aaron Davis, whom he thought was dead. Gwen also realizes that Miles is in the wrong universe. She reveals herself to the Morales. Although they do not trust her, she promises to bring Miles back. However, Miles accompanies Aaron to do a job, and he sees a mural revealing that Jefferson is already dead in this universe. Miles wakes up in another room, tied to a punching bag. He mentions the Prowler from his universe, but Aaron tells him that he is not the Prowler. The real Prowler appears and introduces himself to be Miles Morales. Time to find an escape route. Miles starts to gear up his electricity on the chains holding him. In Miles' universe, Spot arrives in preparation to eliminate Jefferson. However, Gwen forms her team of spider people, which includes not only Peter B alongside Mayday, Hobie, Powder, and Margot, but also Spider Nor, Spider Ham, and Peanut Parker. The team begins their journey to bring back Miles. The end. If you love this video, please subscribe and leave a like.